Hello, this is Jonathan Wood from Soft Circuits, and in this video we're going to talk about using ActiveX controls from an MFC application. ActiveX controls use a COM specification, which stands for Common Object Model. This specification was made very popular by the original Visual Basic and Visual Basic for Applications. Now, with the growing popularity of the .NET platform, ActiveX controls are slowly becoming a thing of the past. However, there is still a lot of support for them, including from within the .NET platform, and many useful ActiveX controls and objects are available that you may want to use. Providing a container for an ActiveX control is not a trivial task. So while there are several ways to approach this, I'm going to focus on an MFC feature that allows you to easily use an ActiveX control on an MFC dialog. So I'll start by creating a project, and it'll be an MFC application, and we'll call it ActiveX. And since we'll need a dialog, we'll just go ahead and make it a dialog-based application to make it easy. And we'll bring up the dialog template. And delete that. Now here we are in the MFC or Visual Studio Dialog template editor, and hopefully you're a little bit familiar with that. Now to add an ActiveX control, you right click on the dialog box and select the Insert ActiveX Control command. And after a moment that'll bring up a list of ActiveX controls that are available on your system. Now your list is going to vary from mine probably, because this is a list of registered ActiveX controls on your system and will depend on the applications and controls that are installed on your system. So for this we're going to select the calendar control, and it looks like it shows us a path which is in Microsoft Office, so this is related to Microsoft Office. And then we get this on our dialog, and we can size it. And we have in our properties window, we can see right away that we have a list of properties associated with the control, and those can be changed. Colors and all sorts of various things that we can change at design time, and that will affect how it appears or behaves at runtime. So let's just go ahead and run that. And there's our dialog running, and we have a calendar control. We can select different months, and we can select different years. So it's basically works like a standard dialog control, although they generally have a little more functionality. So let's go ahead and extend that a little bit. Let me make this a little bigger. And the first thing I want to do is add a button. And we'll use this button to set the calendar to today's date. So we'll set the caption to say today, and we'll change the ID of the button to IDC_today. And we don't need to create a button class for this, but we do want to create an event handler to handle when the button is clicked. So we'll click that. We're going to handle it from within our dialog box. And before we do that, we do want to create a variable associated with our ActiveX control. So we'll right click the ActiveX control and click Add Variable. It can only be a control variable, and in the category of control, which means the variable will represent the control itself and not a value returned by the control. The variable type is C calendar 1, And it should be noted that this type has not been defined in this project. Instead, it will be created by the MFC wizards, and it will be placed in these files specified here, the header file and the code file, and they will accomplish that. MFC will accomplish that by examining the ActiveX control, looking at its properties, and creating a C++ class that contains those that you can access from code. So we'll give our variable a name. We'll just call it m_calendar. And the names for the source files look okay, so we'll click on Finish. And in fact, let's go take a look at those. calendar1.h, that's our header file, and we have some standard ActiveX methods such as create and create control and get CLSID, and then down here we have a number of public methods that provide access to the functionality of the control. And by adding a variable, we automatically have a variable of this type associated with our dialog box, or stored within our dialog box, and there's automatically an instance of it. So now if we come to our button click event handler, we can go ahead and access the calendar control directly. And what we want to do is when that button's clicked, we want to set the date to today. And the calendar control has a method called today that does just that. And so we'll just call that method, and let's go ahead and run that. So as before, we can select a different month and select any date, and if we click today, it goes back to today's date, which is in August of 2007 when this video is made, and so that works just like we'd want it to. And another thing that ActiveX controls provide are events, and events you're probably familiar with. There are types of events in MSC programming, although they work slightly differently. But let's go ahead and demonstrate that. Basically, an event is something that the control notifies your code about, and so allows you to respond to it. And we'll add a label down here at the bottom, and we'll set its ID to status, IDC_status. And since we're going to be changing that label at runtime, it'll be easier if we create a variable associated with it. So again, this is a control variable, and it's not a value, and it's of type cStatic, which represents the static window which that control is, and we'll give it a name, m_status, and add that to our dialog. Now we can right click on our ActiveX control, and we can put add event handler, and this is similar to the add event handler that we had for the regular controls like the button, but we have some events that are specific to the calendar control. And for example, we have an after update event, and that gets called after the date changes. So in order to keep our label current with the current date, we'll need to change it every time the date changes on the control. So we'll go ahead and add that handler, and we'll create a string, and we'll use the format method, and we'll just go month, day, and year, and we should probably do some international language at least should be taken into consideration as far as formatting, but we won't worry about that for this demo. And then on our calendar control, we have get month, have a get day, and a get year method. Now, if you've ever used languages like Visual Basic, you'll notice that ActiveX controls have properties. Internally, properties are implemented as methods that are hidden to languages like Visual Basic, and that's what the get underscore is. That means we're calling one of the methods associated with the property, and so it's a little more work in C, but not much at all. And once we formatted our string, we can write it to our status control, calling the setWindow text method with our string. And so now when we change the date, this event should be called, and it'll update the label on our dialog. So let's try that. And as we click on it, we'll see our date at the bottom of the dialog changes to show the currently selected date. Now I went kind of fast, but in case you missed it, when the dialog first opens up, we don't get that event, so we show static there. So what we probably want to do is, in our dialog class, on initial update, we probably want to call that handler so that it's the date's updated immediately. And let's try that. And there we see our date at the bottom is immediately updated, and then it changed whenever we change the date. In order to run this, as I mentioned, it depends. The available ActiveX controls depend on the software that's installed on your system. So if you don't have the, for example, Microsoft Office, you probably won't be able to run this control, and you won't be able to run this project. But the concept of using ActiveX controls, I hope I've demonstrated that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when you use an ActiveX control in your application, running it on your computer is one thing. If you plan to distribute your application, you'll need to make sure that you have all the files that the ActiveX control relies on. And before I quit here, I just thought I'd mention, I thought a cool example for this video would be to use a Windows Media Player, which is available as an ActiveX control. Unfortunately, newer versions of this control do not work correctly in MFC. And as of Visual Studio 2005, the method MFC uses to identify the interface and the elements within an ActiveX controls interface is no longer fully compatible with Windows Media Player. And while it will appear to work, what happens is the wrapper class created by the MFC wizards will not include all the public methods that are specific to that control. So you may find some quirks and some things. In general, ActiveX controls are not designed specifically for MFC, but this will give you an introduction to how you can make use of them in some cases, and it might be something you want to give a try.